Hey everybody, I'm Katallina, and today we're talking about episode 1 of Demon Slayer Season 4. As expected, the first episode of the new season did not disappoint. With a nail-biting opening that showcased just how badass the Wind and Snake Hashira are, showing off some incredible moves and giving these guys a quick glimpse at the Infinity Castle, it's clear they're not sparing anything to ensure the season's opening looks beautiful. It can't top the opening episode of Season 3 for me, but I'm a Doma fangirl, and I've got zero qualms about disclosing that bias. That being said, there were a ton of great things shown here, both from a visuals and storytelling point of view. As much fun as I had watching the opening fight, there was something about it that didn't sit right with me and that started setting off some alarm bells. Why was that demon carrying a girl around for so long? Why hadn't he consumed her? Where was he taking her? And most importantly, for what purpose? We don't find that out, but obviously something strange is going on, because those characteristics seem out of place for how demons normally behave. The next thing that drew my attention was the Hashira meeting. Watching the Love and Mist Hashira each take a turn explaining what it was like to get their mark was incredibly interesting, and, in the case of the Love Hashira, incredibly funny. Especially the part where she basically went, "I wish I could just fall into a hole in the floor right now," when nobody seemed to really get what she was trying to describe, and everybody was kind of looking at her like she'd lost her mind for a moment. Of course, there is the reality that Tanjiro's reaction and descriptions were very similar, so it's kind of cute to see how the very kind-hearted and loving Tanjiro and the Love Hashira both had similar takes on what it was like to go through this. On the other hand, the Mist Hashira was able to give a very detailed and logical account of what he had experienced. I really like the fact that each of these accounts from each of these characters was unique and was true to who each of these people are as a person. I thought that that was a very clever way to go about doing that. And while we're still talking about that meeting, I've got to admit that it was pretty slick how they point out that there is a consequence to having the mark, and then leave the scene without telling us what that consequence is. Especially troubling, given that Tanjiro, the Love Hashira, and the Mist Hashira all each have one of these marks already, so whatever consequence there is for the others to consider and to face, whatever the story has kept from us, these three are already facing it, and they had no real say in the matter. I think with each of these characters, though, that they're very driven and determined, and that they would have chosen to go through with it regardless, but it's still an interesting point to be made. I'm also dying to know what's up with the Water Hashira, given that he's one of the 3 people who pledged their lives were Nezuko to ever do anything wrong. It's odd that he would choose now to bow out of things. You'd think he would be one of the people most eager to protect her. It's obvious there's something being hidden, and it's obvious that he's in some sort of pain. Hopefully the next episode will be more forthcoming about just what is happening. The last thing I want to say that ties into the meeting is that I love how they showcased the strength and compassion of Kaguya's wife, Amane, here. Having her step up and fill her husband's shoes because he's become too ill to do so is another way that the show highlights the fact that there are more forms of strength that a person can have than merely physical strength of presence. And I think that's really important. I also love how they showed her caring for him later, and showed him thanking her for all that she's done for him. I like how they've always given us these little glimpses of these 2 characters throughout the series, and I'll admit that my eyes were getting pretty damn misty around this point. Not sure what I think of how they're using Tanjiro and someone from the Demon Slayer Corps as part of a pair of talking heads in between major scenes. The running joke of needing to eat so much food was alright, and using the swordsmith guy that makes all of Tanjiro's swords as a comedic sidestep was also pretty cool. It was good to see him again. I'm terrible, I don't remember his name, my bad. This part of the show redeemed itself though by having one of my favorite moments in the episode. I have 2 that really stood out to me, and ironically both of those actually featured Zenitsu for some reason, which is odd because while I've got nothing against him, he's not necessarily my favorite, but he was fantastic here. The first one was between Tanjiro and Zenitsu, and I thought that it was really incredible. The fact that Tanjiro, lying in bed and still wounded, can have an impact on his friends, even in that condition, is amazing. And the subtle message, again, that it's not merely physical strength, that mental fortitude, that compassion, that courage, that conviction, and that perseverance can all be their own forms of strength, and that they are all incredibly important and useful and powerful and to be respected, is something I really love this show for, and something that it actually seems to really strive to highlight. A lot of times when we see the demons, what we see is that it's actually weaknesses of character, not merely physical defect, that actually lead to their change and to them being able to be used by Muzan. And what we see that actually protects and strengthens and defends the people that end up being the heroes isn't merely physical strength, but a spiritual or mental strength as well. So I thought it was really great that we're seeing that highlighted here. But my favorite part of the episode wasn't anything quite so noble. Rather, it was about Nezuko's new quest to learn how to speak, and the fact that there is a scene where Zenitsu shows up, and he's been talking to each of these girls as he's come back from a mission, and he's like, "Did you miss me? Nah. Did you miss me? Nah. Did you miss me? Nah." And finally Nezuko shows up, and he's all like, "Nezuko-chan!" And Nezuko is like, "Welcome back, Inosuke." And what we don't know at that point is that Inosuke has been working with Nezuko to have her learn how to say his name properly, because everybody always gets his name wrong and he wants her to be able to get it right. And so when she sees Zenitsu, instead of saying his name, she instead goes, "Welcome back, Inosuke." And Zenitsu just crumples. For a minute he just seems really sad, and then he just gets this look like he wants to just end somebody. Like, Inosuke, in that moment, it's probably a good thing you weren't here, because I think this might be the one hot second where you guys might actually be evenly matched. It was that great an expression. It was priceless, and I loved it. Overall, though, I'd say this was a rock-solid start to the season. There was some fantastic action and combat sequencing at the beginning that really amped everything up and got people pumped. And then there was just a lot of beautiful slice-of-life comedy, character interactions, the kind of stuff they need to do to build people up and to get people really connected to these characters and to this story, so that as it progresses and we get into things that are more serious going down the line, we have these memories to look back on and to help us connect with the characters and to make everything that happens to these characters going forward ultimately have more impact. But these are just my thoughts. I'd love to know what you guys thought of this episode, so if you had a favorite part, feel free to share, drop it below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!